Welcome back to Jeff Willett's Muscle Hub, home of my weekly Q&A show and all of my YouTube video updates. Thank you for your question submission this week. Keep them coming. You guys drive the show. And let's get into this week's 5 questions. Question number 1 comes from Joey Hart, and this came through Facebook. He wants to know, when preparing for a contest or having someone do calorie deficit dieting, how do you find the initial calories? That's a really good question, and there's a lot of variance there. I'll try to pin down a couple markers that I use because there are a lot of variables to consider and not one set formula. Some of it's based on an educated guess just from a long time of doing this, but I do have some markers I look at. For one, I'm going to find out, has the person been eating any set amount of calories for a while? So in other words, if the person knows they've been eating 2,500 calories, let's say, for a while, even if the ratios aren't right, well, I want to start them somewhere around where they've already been eating, because I don't want to make a huge drop in a deficit right away, but I want to start with around the level that they've been consistently eating and get the ratios right first, meaning around 50% of those calories from protein, upper 30s from carbohydrates, and then around the teens are going to be from fats. So that's the model I use if someone's already been eating a structured nutrition plan. If they've been all over the board and just haven't charted anything, then we have to kind of start and work a little bit backwards. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to find out like what their body weight is, and I'm going to want to establish that start point of having them somewhere around 1.5 to 2 grams per pound of body weight, of protein per pound of body weight. That's going to be kind of like a start point. Then we know that there's 4 calories per 1 gram of protein, and then I want that number to be about 50% of their total calories. So I build it backwards kind of that way. So that's another way that I can do it. So really, in general, you're going to start and really work those nutrient ratios to your advantage. And no matter what, it's only a start point. And we have to establish that start point before we can make any of those deficit cuts. So I get a start point, and if someone's been kind of all over the board, I'm going to have them follow that for probably 6 to 8 weeks before we even think about doing any change. Then we know what we need to do to the calories, plus or minus, and generally we're going to skim them down. Question number 2 comes from Moya, and this came through Facebook. And they say, I am a veteran in fitness for about 20 years of lifting, and I would love to train Max OT. Can you give me some tips? Well, obviously this is a big question, but I thought I do get this question kind of a lot, so I thought I would mention just some basic tips. One, you want to keep the volume and the frequency low. So by frequency, I mean how you're going to train your body parts. Train one body part directly 1 time a week. 2, we want to keep the volume low, which means the total sets. We're going to keep the sets low between 6 and 8 for major body parts, and between 4 and 5 for the smaller body parts. And then we're going to keep the reps in a 4 to 6 repetition range. That's another really key Max OT principle. And then with that, I would say if you want more specific information, I do have on my website, jeffwillet.com, I do have a 5-day Max OT arrangement so you can see a workout, exactly how it's laid out. And I do have the Muscle Masterclass available as a video on demand where I actually go around and talk about the principles really in depth. But those are some of the basic Max OT principles to help get you started. Volume low, frequency low, weight heavy, 4 to 6 reps. Question 3 comes from Mr. Kentucky 03, and this came through YouTube. It says, I remember when you were doing deadlifts every other week when you won the Team Universe. Do you still consider this a good strategy? And I do. What I would like to do is when I'm doing regular deadlifts on back day and squats every week, week in and week out, I felt like that was a lot of total body work every week and a lot of stress on the body and on recovery. So what I found to work real well was I squatted every week, but I did regular deadlifts every other week in my back workout. And I do think that's a good way that you can still work deadlifts into your routine and take advantage of the compound nature of that movement, but not overdo it by squatting and deadlifting every week. Because remember, recovery is such a big part of muscle growth. Question number 4 comes from Jordan, and this came through email. And it wants to know, can I group biceps with chest? When I do chest alone, it feels like I could do more. Well, you certainly could group other body parts with chest, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just be careful of this whole, feeling like you could do more. Remember, the goal of the workout, whatever body part you're doing, is to stimulate muscle growth, and that is best achieved with a heavy weight and an intense, short workout with Max OT principles. So I wouldn't worry if a chest workout is short. That's fine, as long as you're doing the prescribed number of sets and really striving to better your numbers and working in that 4 to 6 rep range. The duration of the workout really doesn't matter. It's more the intensity and the load that you're placing on that muscle. And question 5 comes from Pavi415, and this came through YouTube. Wants to know, what are some exercises not approved to use in Max OT? Well, with Max OT, we want to do compound basic free weight lifts. So the things you don't want to do, just as kind of a short list of them, because I generally like to focus on what you can do, we want to stay away from isolation type movements. Things like dumbbell flies, pec deck, concentration curls, a variety of cable work, single limb movements, because when we're doing these movements, we're putting ourselves at a mechanical disadvantage to handle the most weight we could. So we want to stick with these basic compound lifts where we can handle the most weight through the most natural mechanical range of motion. And I can tell you one thing, when you stick to the exercises that you're supposed to do in the Maxwell T principles, and you do the Maxwell T principles exactly how they're supposed to do, that's when you're going to look and feel like Superman. Keep those questions coming. You can send them through Facebook, through Twitter, through YouTube, and you can use hashtag AskJW. You guys drive the show. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Now let's go out and execute.